Delegate Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very disappointed that Delegate Moorfield stole my witty joke this morning, but I too would love to do this at 8 a.m. Bill 2068 has a line amendment. I have copies if the staff attorney does not, but I think before we move forward, the appropriate thing to do would be to see if anybody wishes to move said line amendment.
Would you mind explaining the line
Yes,
amendment, Mr. Sharp?
Attorney Sharp, if you could read it.
Mr. Chair, House Bill 2068, line 13, after the word decisions, strike as granted by this chapter and insert related to solar-powered and wind-powered electricity generation, including energy storage projects and data centers as defined in subdivision A43 of 51-3506.
Attorney Sharp, are the amendments germane to the legislation?
Mr. Chair, I would say so, yes. It really narrows the bill, but yes, I would say it's germane.
Is there a motion to accept the amendments?
So moved.
It's moved and properly second to accept the amendments. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to do a hat tip anonymously to a member of the majority party for bringing issues to my attention that led to those line amendments. It was very kind of that person, and I'm grateful for their suggestion and their support. This bill is a bill I'm carrying because of our shared values. When I say our shared values, I mean everyone on this subcommittee. It's because we care about our citizens. It's because we care about our constituents. It's because we care about our fire and our rescue and our educators and our communities. And so while you see a line amendment that explicitly mentions particular areas wherein this law would ensure that local government were able to make its own decisions, it is truly because the ability of local government to extract from developers proffers is tied to the ability of local government to make land use decisions. So for example, in Buckingham County where I live, there are multiple projects moving forward wherein there are proffers to the tune of $3-4 total million, which doesn't sound like a lot of money to us, which is sad, right? Because we deal with budgets that are in the billions. But when you're in a county like Cumberland where there is literally not a single supermarket, $3 million is a lot of money. It pays a lot of teachers. It pays a lot of firefighters. And so these are the sorts of things that allow the people at the local government level who have the challenge of making sure that our children receive an adequate education or that our families are adequately protected by the threats that we know so well from recent news, like fire. The ability to make local land use decisions is a very real tool to help them extract these proffers, which would be removed from these localities if we remove their ability to make these important decisions. And so this bill says that it's about making sure that we leave local land use decisions regarding solar and wind and battery storage at the local level. But what it's really about is allowing the men and women on our boards of supervisors and city and town councils to raise the revenue that they need to do the jobs to serve our families. And I know you guys all care about that, and I know I do. And so that's what this bill is about. I have been humbled by assistance that I've gotten from people who I didn't think would help me, although I'm not allowed to mention their name. I've been humbled by the number of people who have come forward. I have had every single county I represent, and then some: Fluvanna, Buckingham, Cumberland, Louisa, Goochland, Appomattox, Halifax, Prince William, Prince Edward. I could keep going, but we don't have time. And leadership in those counties tell me we really appreciate what you're trying to do here. And, excuse me, I have had a lady on the Board of Supervisors in the county inform me that she has had the opportunity over the years to vote for me like 7 times and saying, "Tom, I never have." And that's okay. She said, "I love you, Bill. I understand what you're trying to do, and I'm grateful for you." And then she pulled out her phone and said, In fact, I want to call my friend, and I said, "Who's your friend?" And she said, "Louise Lucas." So this is about helping our kids get an education and our public safety officials provide that public safety. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate. Is there anyone on the committee that has any questions for the patron? Delegate Shin? Delegate Coulson?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question.
Delegate
Coulson. Thank you. And I guess I need a second to formulate it, but because I'm still trying to process things, because at the end you were talking about education and public safety, and I am understanding the amendment correctly in that you're trying to limit this to solar, wind, and energy.
So the concern that was raised
Delegate.
yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
floor.
I apologize. Yeah, so we had made it very broad. Essentially, the bill said land use decisions are local. And people who were smarter than me came to me and said, "Tom, you're going to kill your own bill because there are some land use decisions that aren't local." And I'm like, okay. And they said, like, how about where the off-ramp on the interstate goes? How about where the power line or the pipeline that goes across 7 states goes? And I said, you're right, I'm wrong. And so we spoke with stakeholders like Farm Bureau and other members of this body, again, who I won't name, but I'm very grateful to. And they said, just narrow the focus down. Everybody knows what you're trying to do here, and everybody on each side of the aisle is going to understand the impact of extracting from the localities the ability to get proffers from developers, but you can't make it that broad. So that's why it's as narrow as it is.
Chair, can I have a follow-up?
Delegate Coulson?
Okay, so I appreciate the narrowing, but it still strikes me as an odd request for a law in that the Dillon's rule doesn't deny localities the power to do zoning. They have zoning decisions right now for solar. So this is almost like a Manchurian candidate, like forward-looking, we're going to give away the state's power to regulate zoning for localities when there's a whole code section that gives them clearly enumerated powers where they can make zoning decisions. And in fact, they already do with solar and solar farms. So I'm not sure what the purpose of this serves, other than like a value statement for you that's not required under the current code section. So that's my feedback.
Delegate Garrett?
Right. So I think that the delegate was the city attorney for a city really close to my district, and I know she knows what she's talking about. There was a bill last year that you might not be familiar with that would have extracted from localities the ability to make these decisions, invested it with the State Corporation Commission. And so I know that that didn't get on some people's radar, but this would address that. It would say in law that the ability to make these land use decisions belongs to the locality and not to the State Corporation Commission. And the reason that's important is if you take from these localities the ability to make these decisions, then there is no reason on earth that the solar developer, for example, would proffer $2 million to Buckingham County. They wouldn't need to. They'd come grease palms in Richmond, and that's not going to help our families.
Chair, can I respond?
Delegate Coulson?
That law did not pass.
Right,
So
it's
this
back
is
this year.
legislating.
Delegate Garrett?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
So, Chair, I guess that would be my feedback, is that that law went through a process. It did not pass. This is a law that would be just a very odd workaround to the Dillon's rule, preventing us, like the separation of how we separate our powers from legislating around an issue. And it sounds like that you got the outcome you wanted from that bill. So that would be my pushback on this.
Sure.
Respectful feedback.
Delegate Garrett, would you like to?
I just would ask the delegate to, before she casts her vote, put on her city attorney hat.
All right, we're at the Delegate Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to speak to the bill.
Microphone, Delegate Higgins. And you have the floor.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to speak to the bill. Delegate Garrett's mention of the bill last year was absolutely something that happened. And yes, the process stopped it, but I can tell you when I was in touch with the Board of Supervisors in Loudoun County, where I served for 8 years, they were absolutely up in arms about that bill and many other localities, because the potential for people to step in and basically map out hundreds of acres of open space in western Loudoun for solar, that I have nothing against solar, but those decisions need to be made locally. And so if we've had one attempt to do that, we will have more attempts, I can guarantee you. And this bill that's been proposed by Delegate Garrett would keep those decisions local, and that's where they need to be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Higgins. And while I appreciate the comments and discussion in the bill, I believe this year there are a multitude of vehicles that discuss this topic, whether specifically or broadly. But at this point, we will go to the room to see if anyone would like to speak in favor of this bill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. Caitlin Jordan with Virginia Farm Bureau Federation. We would like to thank the patron for addressing our concerns by introducing the amendments, and as amended, we support the bill. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Glenn Loeb for Prince William County. At Tuesday's meeting of the Board of County Supervisors meeting, they unanimously in a bipartisan manner endorsed this bill.
Thank you. As amended?
Well, that's a little subject to.
It was amended yesterday, so.
So not as amended, just for the record.
Mr. Chairman, Brad Copenhaver with the Virginia Agribusiness Council. I'd like to associate my comments with Ms. Jordan from the Farm Bureau. We also support the bill as amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak against this bill?
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Clark with the Home Builders Association of Virginia. I apologize. I had not had a chance to read this, but as I understand it, I think Delegate Carlson raised some valid concerns, but seeding shall not be ceded to state agencies. I mean, from the home building perspective, I know this was kind of carved out for solar and whatever else. DEQ and the Army Corps of Engineers play a pretty significant role in permitting that, and I don't think any of, at least in our industry, any would want to just kind of take that power away from those really important regulatory agencies and just say that's all kind of in the hands of the locality. So I don't know if that's the intent of it or if I'm just kind of misunderstanding it, but by saying everything's with the locality, that kind of reads to me that, okay, what role does DEQ and the Corps play in their permitting functions? Well,
Yeah, right, federal government, state government.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
okay.
All right, we are back in front of the committee. Are there any additional questions or any motions?
Substitute motion to lay on the table, Mr. Chair.
There's a substitute motion, and that has to move to table. And there's been probably second. Mr. Clerk, can you please open the roll? Mr. Clerk, can you please close the roll?